Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. The reason we just got a hi from Virginia, USA. So we have folks from across the globe joining us today. And first of all, thank you so much the Cardano Foundation, Pratik, um, especially Seb, Yoram, Lucas for taking your time and connecting with the Indian developer ecosystem here. So for those of you who are starting, so my name is Kiran. I'm the co-founder of Web3 Learn. So Web3 Learn is a blockchain skilling platform. And our mission is to train as many developers as possible and get them transition into the Web3 world. So today's session is all about intro to Cardano ecosystem. So we were joined by the goats themselves actually. So let me get to the intro and you'll understand why I say the goats there. So the way how we are going to do this event is it's going to be a 3-part session where we will get intro to Cardano ecosystem by Seb, followed by why you have to start building and where you can where you can start building on Cardano by Lucas, and then we will wrap up with the intro to Cardano Catalyst Fund by Yoram. Okay, so in terms of logistics, keep your questions coming in the chat box. We are recording this session and we will have this session live in the next 48 to 72 hours on YouTube. So that you can go back to any discussions that you have missed there. On that note, let me introduce our first speaker for the day, Seb. Huge respect. Just to give a little bit of intro, I would like to even have like a 2-minute chat with Seb before I pass on the screen. So Seb is a computer engineer. He did his bachelor's and master's, and then the interesting part is he's a PhD in mechanical engineer. So super transition there, and he worked with Volkswagen. Worked with a lot of interesting companies in the space, and above all, he leads the engineering efforts at Cardano Foundation at the moment. So he actually is the GOAT. You will be listening from the GOAT to about Cardano, like why Cardano and why you need to start building on the top of the ecosystem. On that note, like just one quick question, Seb. Love to understand like how your transition to Web3 has been. You've been wearing multiple hats. Super impressive profile there. Love to hear your journey, and we will get started.
Oh, that's easy. When I started my professional career, I started actually as a computer games programmer before I started the typical German career, I would say. So that's why I have a PhD in mechanical engineering, working for automotive and aeronautics industry, and also finance. But in my free time, my heart was still bound to the computer games development. And I did a free time project with a friend of mine. And I was initially interested mostly in real peer-to-peer communication and peer-to-peer gaming or trustless gaming setups, so which enables you to do an online game with someone and then have a trustless platform validate the game state for you without the need to trust each other. And that was actually my entry point to the blockchain space, starting with Ethereum, doing some Solidity development, and then in the end ending up with Cardano, figuring out Cardano is the better protocol.
Awesome. Okay, cool. On that note, super excited, to learn like why Cardano, the best protocol there. Over to you. Feel free to share the screen, and the screen is yours.
Cool. Thank you very much. So let me share my screen and say a big thank you for having Cardano Foundation and providing the platform that we can present what's going on in the Cardano ecosystem. To give you short, so my role is to provide you with a short introduction to Cardano, what it is, where we come from, and so on and so forth. So first of all, I'm based in Germany. I'm the director of engineering at Cardano Foundation, which means I oversee the software development teams here, as well as the technical integration teams, which are the guys that help third parties, exchanges to run the Cardano components. In the role of the Cardano Foundation, which is kind of a neutral entity in the space. So we are a Swiss-based nonprofit that oversees the ecosystem development. That's our role. Cardano itself is a blockchain protocol which is based on a proof of stake consensus algorithm. I will give you some more details on that on one of the next slides, but the next interesting information is actually that there are 3 founding entities to Cardano. So there is IOG, which is the company that was funded by Charles Hoskinson, and which was responsible for providing all the infrastructure that we have. So the full node is developed by IOG, and all the API layer modules that were there from the beginning and have, which was a good development, extended by a lot of community projects, which from one you will see in that presentation as well. And so that's IOG, like the core blockchain infrastructure company behind Cardano. Then there was Emergo, which is a company which was in the beginning responsible as the venture capital arm or the enterprise adoption arm of the whole Cardano venture. They have transitioned a bit, but came back to the Cardano space and will now in 2023 release a fully asset-backed stablecoin called USDA on Cardano, which is super exciting. And of course, they also provide education, good education programs on general blockchain, as well as Cardano specifics. And then it's the Cardano Foundation, as already mentioned, the typical non-profit foundation based in Switzerland, kind of stewarding and overseeing the ecosystem development. So when it comes to Cardano, I have a pretty boring slide prepared for that, because I think the next part will be much more interesting when you get some idea about how you can build on Cardano. And me as being a former developer, and I have to admit I'm a former developer, it's probably the more interesting thing. So we are, as already mentioned, we are a proof of stake blockchain. The interesting thing is that the proof of stake mechanism of Cardano differs from other proof of stake mechanisms in terms of that it is a only positively incentivized proof of stake mechanism. So there is no slashing of funds once they are staked to a stake pool, and also no locking, which is, in terms of financial regulations, of course, interesting and favorable, as we learned most recently with all those developments in the States. Cardano is also based on the so-called EU extended UTXO model, which is more closer to Bitcoin's model than to Ethereum's account-based modeling. And this basically means you follow the coin instead of that you keep track of the account balance of a wallet, for example. That's somewhat special when it comes to building on Cardano, especially when you're in the smart contract space, because it takes some time to get a good understanding of the mental model behind it, and not to just keep on building dApps and smart contracts in a way that you would have done it in a account-based blockchain or on an account-based blockchain. That's interesting, especially for businesses. We have a completely deterministic fees model. So whatever you do on the blockchain, you can calculate the fees up front before you submit the transaction. It's not like with Ethereum, for example, that you just put enough gas in there and then you're hoping for the best that your transaction gets processed, and it was enough gas in there. So no funds are lost if you did not fund that transaction with enough ADA, which is the native token on Cardano. We have an interesting tokenomics model, which is called native assets. The interesting part is that those tokens are not just smart contract based, but they are first-class passengers. And this means they inherit the same level of security as the main ADA token has. So whenever you mint a token on Cardano, that's on the one hand, it's pretty straightforward because you don't have to write a smart contract for it. But also, it has those additional security assurances that you can take into account. We have so the main infrastructure has been built in Haskell, with Haskell, functional programming language. Our smart contract platform is also based on Haskell, but a specific dialect of it, so to say, which is called Plutus. There are some interesting community projects ongoing which extend those smart contract platform by adding new languages, which are not really functional, but are more familiar, for example, to Rust developers or others. Those projects are called, for example, Helios or Aiken, which is a good thing when it comes to accessibility of the whole smart contract ecosystem. Just to be conscious of time, let me jump to the next speed. When you want to start building on Cardano, there are some good resources which you can use to get an overview about the ecosystem. There is the Cardano developer portal, which is a community-driven effort to collect all the information about the different and various projects. So whenever you have an interesting project, you can come to the Cardano developer portal and register it there, provide your own information, and classify and also put it into certain categories, which makes the Cardano developer portal able to filter for certain tools, if it's for DeFi, if you're looking for a specific programming language or stuff like that. So that's a good resource to start with. There are other such sites which list the different projects on Cardano, for example, Cardano Cube, where you have also a nice overview over the different projects in the ecosystem and the categories they belong to. So that's one resource. When you're a developer or an engineer, or even if you only have a business interest in it, there is a process that's called Cardano Improvement Proposals, which are also a community-driven and overseen by the Cardano Foundation effort to improve the Cardano protocol. So you can make proposals of if a feature shall be included on layer 1, if we want to introduce a convention or a standard for how NFTs, for example, are represented on Cardano. This is something where the community can participate and comment on the proposals, create own proposals, so that this is a transparent process here. There's Project Catalyst, which we will hear about later. So I won't go into any details about Catalyst, but it's one of the shining stars in the ecosystem, I'd say. I really love Project Catalyst, actually one of the reasons why I'm in the Cardano space as well. There are the Cardano ambassadors. So there's a website where you can find the different ambassadors. Those are people that help you to onboard in the Cardano ecosystem. And they're located in various regions scattered all around the globe. So just figure out in which country one ambassador is and then reach out to them. And there are a couple of other community interest groups on Discord, on Twitter. We moderate some of them with weekly occurring meetings. So if you have a special interest in NFTs or dApp stores or anything like that, please feel free to reach out to me personally via email or via whatever channel, or to our partnerships team, and we make sure that you get in contact with the right parties, because that's also one of the tasks of Cardano Foundation. And this already brings me to the end of my presentation and hopefully leaves enough time for the other more interesting techie parts here.
Cool, awesome. Thanks, Seb. Might we just pause for a minute and take any questions if you guys have for Seb. There have been a couple of questions around grants. Yoram will cover exclusively about the grants and in the Catalyst Fund presentation in a moment. So I think there's one question on what is the underlying development language for Cardano?
Yeah, so there are various development languages. The main language was in the beginning Haskell. So the node has been developed in Haskell. A lot of modules all around the node, which make it possible to interface it, were in Haskell. But in the meantime, there are a lot of other frameworks around which let you interface with the blockchain. So it's Rust, TypeScript, JavaScript. I guess the guys from Modify will present that soon. You have C# frameworks, C++, Java. That's especially something where Cardano Foundation is currently helping to evolve the ecosystem there, because for enterprise adoption, the traditional companies, Java makes a lot of sense. Yeah, so there are various programming languages and language bindings available on Cardano.
Perfect, cool. Thanks, Seb. So let's, okay. We have one more question and we'll take that. So do you think Cardano is a great protocol to migrate from Ethereum?
Of course it is. What shall I say? I mean, we have deterministic fees.
Yeah.
We have strong metadata features when it comes to transactions, and the native asset minting is super smooth. The smart contract platform is newer, of course, than Ethereum's, and still the developer experience needs to improve there, to be completely honest. But when it comes to transaction throughput, reliability, so Cardano's live since 2017 without any downtime of the mainnet, it's definitely an option to migrate from Ethereum.
Love that low downtime. Yeah, we've been hearing that every day from one protocol or the other. So there are a couple of technical questions, and guys, let's move to the next presentation. So I think Luca should be able to cover some of the tech stuff, but keep the questions coming. But on that note, thanks, Seb. We'll bring Lucas on the screen. So let me give a little bit of intro. Lucas, I would call him as another OG goat in the Cardano ecosystem. So his background has been like he has spent most of his career in the financial services, with BNP Paribas and PwC, and he has been actively involved in the Cardano ecosystem, especially on the technical side. And he also runs this initiative called 45b.io. Go check it out to onboard more and more SMBs onto the Cardano ecosystem. So if you are a project building on Cardano ecosystem or looking to build, Lucas is the perfect person to talk to. On that note, Lucas, feel free to share your screen, and look forward to hearing some of the tech stuff, especially on where to get started, how to get started.
Hey, thank you so much. It's just a bit of correction. So the focus of 45B is not to be deeply technical, but it's to onboard small and medium businesses and to find solutions for them, bridging with the most technical people like Mesh, for example, Martify. I'm going to be representing Martify here just to show you a bit of their product, but I'm not going to go like coding or anything very serious. So a bit about myself. Like Kiran was saying, I have like 20 years of experience in accounting and finances. I've been from banking as well into many different types of positions. When I found Web3, blockchain, and eventually started steering more to Cardano, I decided to focus my career on it. So for the past year, I've been learning the technology, finding solutions, and trying to put together, redefining my career. So I'm going to be sharing my screen. Got it?
Yep, we can see it.
Thank you so much. So what I put together here was some overall concepts around introducing your learners to what's already happening in Cardano in terms of projects and communities. Just a bit like Sebastian was showing you. Then I'm going to take you through some very basic concepts steered to developers, but this is the very basic 2+2 in terms of concepts. And then here I'm going to show you a bit of the overall Mesh situation. So I'd like to start by congratulating everyone for being here, for taking interest in Cardano. Joining Cardano as a developer or working in this ecosystem in any capacity may be a very important and fruitful decision to your career. I'm looking forward to talk a bit in the QA at the end of this presentation, but please, for now, if you want to start writing on the chat what your background is, what you're aiming to do, or what you could envision yourself doing in Cardano, I think that would be interesting for us to pick up and discuss after the QA or on the QA. And let's dig in. So, like I said, I'm putting together 45B. If you want to check it out, it's just for now, it's just a placeholder page with some concepts. And I did take some of that to bring to this presentation. So jumping straight into the communities, I'm not going to be opening any of these sites, but I wanted to highlight here, sometimes, especially when I joined a year ago, we were just releasing smart contracts recently, and people were saying that there was not much happening on Cardano. So what I would like to challenge you to do in terms of finding out how you can become, first of all, a user of Cardano, and then start getting to know the solutions and to grow your career inside Cardano, is to get familiarized with some of these projects, whichever you want. But for example, focusing here, we have a thriving ecosystem for NFTs. Some of them are more useful, some of them more artistic, but it's surely creating a lot of synergies and dynamics around these types of digital assets. So connecting with this one, you have here one that is sort of a community, and they have some high quality NFTs as well. Not advising anyone to invest in this at all, but it's just especially because of understanding how the industry is developing. Focusing on World Mobile, for example, here, they are creating infrastructure, communication infrastructure, and they are creating a side chain for Cardano where they're going to communicate and hopefully bridge a bit what Cardano is with real use cases. The same way, you have Book.io, which are picking up public domain or some original artists and creating books, NFTs out of them with a very interesting dynamic as well. And here we have one example of one of the most productive and established communities in Cardano. I encourage you to take a look at what they do. And it's focusing a lot, maybe Yoram can touch a bit more on this type of work that they do, but it's really, really interesting. It's completely connected to the real world, not just bits and bytes and DeFi or something like that. So bridging from the community part, we have communities that are gathering weekly all around the world. And again, Yoram's probably going to touch a bit on this. So these are bridged a lot with the Catalyst Fund. So I'll let Yoram focus more on that part. And a bit like Sebastian was saying, there are some platforms like this one where you can go and find very different kinds of applications and things that are already existing in Cardano. So I hope this gives you a nice landscape where you feel like you could come to this industry and start finding opportunities in any of these companies or organizations. And zooming out, what I'm going to do here is basically not go into code at all, but just give you a visual representation of one of the most basic concepts on Cardano, which is the UTXO. It's called UTXO because it comes from unspent transaction output. And if we go straight into this presentation here, to this diagram here, we have two transactions, and here we have two outputs. So all of the balances in Cardano are represented as these little loose ends or unspent transaction outputs. So that's everything you need to know about what a UTXO is. In terms of the concept, is that everything in Cardano is transactions that have happened before, and then you have the endings that have been outputted from the last transaction, and these are live balances or coins, as we sometimes call them. And so it's these unspent transaction outputs, UTXOs, that are going to compose our balances when we have them in our wallet. This is what we actually have. So this is a very base concept in Cardano. If we see it from a different point of view, here, for example, we have Alice, that has a wallet and an address. She has a bit of ADA there. And this goes as an input into a transaction. And that transaction is programmatic, so it's a Plutus transaction. And that transaction is going to generate an output. This output is the same amount that Alice put in, but it is classified with a bit of extra metadata and information. And it's going to be, let's say, locked or deposited in an application's balance. So this input generated an output that is in what some people call a smart contract. And it's there for someone that can unlock it and use it, this output, using the right datum and the right script. So if you have the right application, you can come here and use this balance. Okay. The same way, this concept of UTXOs going through transactions, I'd like to show you here. This is literally a print screen of a wallet when I was teaching some learners here. And it's just an example of how the simplest transaction between payment wallets is simply just putting in inputs into a transaction. And here we have these two sections here are two UTXOs, so two batches of balances, and those get reshuffled inside the transaction and are redistributed to different recipients. So all this input equals all this output, but it is redistributed to different recipients. And that way, these were consumed, and these are now available for their users. Okay. I'm not sure if maybe Karen is going to have some Q&A at the end of my presentation, so I'm just going to move forward. But make notes, please, and let me know if this was not clear, because this is one of the most basic concepts that I think it's interesting to understand about Cardano. And by the way, it's similar to what happens in Bitcoin, but Bitcoin uses the pure basic UTXO. We call it extended UTXO, as Sebastian very well could elaborate on it. And so the extended UTXO model that Cardano uses is what allows us to have more metadata, more native tokens, and that type of innovation. Now, I'm not going to go very much into smart contracts, but like I was saying here, when we deposit something that was in a payment address and it gets deposited in an application address, there are these kinds of logics, and maybe I can share this link after my presentation on the chat, because it's a very basic example of a smart contract where they're literally just playing rock, paper, scissors. And if you look at it, it's just to illustrate that these kinds of balances can be handled with some logics that are programmed. Turning a bit to the programming languages. So there's Haskell Plutus. So Plutus is a framework that's coded in Haskell. And so it's basically just to illustrate a simple example. At Gimbal Labs, which is a community of developers that I work with, they have someone that developed something very similar, and I just found this one. It's just to illustrate that we can really automate rules in this kind of stack. And so I'm not going to go very much in detail here, but I just wanted to highlight, sometimes people think that developing or coming to blockchain is really just going to be like learning to be a programmer or something, but blockchain and Cardano is very likely going to impact almost all sectors of business. And here you have an example of in these small letters, you have an example of all different use cases that may be used built using Cardano. Okay. I have two very simple examples. Well, not simple, but that I wanted to show it to you in a very simple manner here, where we have real world information that's or facts, or this could be titles of ownership of a house or something like that. And if we have the right chaining of technologies, we can come to having a technological solution in the blockchain that is representing, for example, the title of ownership of a house, or in this case, we're talking about fact page, which is to verify the authenticity of facts. And here we have, this was taken out of IMX, which is a project where we have this dynamic of assuring the identity of someone, where we have an issuer, we have the customer who is being identified, and we have the verifying identity. So all of this information here is going to flow in this kind of stack of smart contracts and blockchain development. Okay, I hope this is insightful, just to, again, widen your horizons and open the appetite to why you want to come and develop in Cardano. And that covers the basic technological concepts. So I'm going to jump into the overview of Mesh, and just to contextualize a bit, what Mesh is a library that you can use. We're going to see a bit. You can literally just put in a few lines of code in Linux if you want, or on your Mac OS, and start developing in Mesh. And what it's going to allow to do, I actually had this diagram here from Ethereum, when I was basically still just finding my ways. And so in a typical application, you have a React application that is communicating with MetaMask or something. And that React application is getting signatures and everything. And then it's sending it to platforms like Moralis or Alchemy in Ethereum to actually interact with the blockchain. So what Mesh is going to do is basically abstract you from all these three things. And it's going to allow you to communicate with 3 or 4 ways of communicating to the blockchain, and to 3 or 4 wallets of Cardano. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen to go straight into this window. So this is the homepage of Mesh, and Actually, if I do refresh, they usually have this animation here where you can see it's literally as simple as you go on your environment and you create a app. It's like create a React app or something like that. You select what languages you want to use, and in a bit you'll be ready to start creating your own application. So because this has that leveraging, like I explained, that it allows already out of the box to communicate with several wallets and also to communicate with several infrastructure providers in Cardano, you have a lot of redundancy in the way you can communicate with the blockchain, and you have a lot of compatibility with different wallets. So I invite you to take a look at their website. Here we have an example of very simple snipping of code where you can put one of these objects on your page. So if I clicked there, I usually don't use Windows, but I'm not sure if it's going to work on this one. There we go. Yeah, you probably can't see it because I'm just sharing this window, my browser window, but I just got a pop-up with my Eternal wallet saying, do you want to connect to this web page? So sorry, I cannot demo the pop-up now. But yeah, so this is the very basic example of what you can do with Mesh. Very simple bits of code to put in your application. And here we have a bit more elaborate example of creating a transaction. And I'm not going to go into all of this in much detail, but I think it's it's visually very simple, as you can see. Even anyone that's learning development can look at this and say, okay, I can build this type of thing. Before I go into a more practical demonstration, here, for example, their website is exceptionally easy to work with. So, for example, if I come there to this send assets, we have this way of playing a bit with my code. And I can literally be here and say, okay, instead of this amount, what if I wanted to send a different amount? And you see it generates the code for you on this side. So you can literally just copy this code and play with it. So it allows you to pre-construct your necessities and your requirements there. And so this is a day-to-day tool. And like I was saying, they have number of other components and pages that you can explore here. For today's demonstration, I'm just going to invite you to come here to the starter templates, which are even, if you don't want to go into specific commands on day one, you can come straight to the starter templates there. And for example, here, they just released something that is very, very easy to use. And if you come there, you could, for example, this is the line of code that you would use instead of starting an empty Mesh application. You would start this e-commerce store with simply this line of code in your environment. But if we go to the live demo, so this is just a demonstration website where you see there you have the ability to connect your wallet. If I go to the shop collection, this is all just demonstration, obviously, that you can start from. And it could be as simple as this to come here and start building your application. Okay. In this case, like I was saying, my Windows is showing me an interface from the wallet where I can connect to the website, and it could prepare my transactions and submit them to the blockchain. So this is what Mesh can do for you. Okay. I think this concludes my presentation for now. I just want to say that I would love to help getting developers onboarded onto Cardano, and I would love to bridge you. Like as you can see, I'm not the best person to be demonstrating how to develop in Mesh, but what we could do is bridge things so that you could have this integrated course of learning how the balances work, how the wallets work as a user, on the test net, for example, and then bridging that knowledge to using Mesh and becoming a full-fledged developer. What I'm ignoring for now is what Mesh doesn't do is the smart contracts part. So for the smart contracts part, you would need to go not necessarily into Plutus Haskell. You can use TypeScript. That's actually one of the things that Mesh is trying to articulate more. Instead of using Plutus so much, use PluTS, for example, which is a TypeScript way of programming smart contracts on Cardano. Okay. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm looking forward to talk in a few minutes.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Lucas. Mesh seems like such a powerful tool. So I request everyone to go and play with that. Either today, tomorrow, or the weekend, you have ample amount of time. And I think really love how you were able to spun off an e-commerce platform in less than 5 seconds, right? It's super
It's
interesting.
amazing.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we need those sort of solutions, to onboard the next billion users. I think that's the number one problem in the Web3 ecosystem at this point of time. So we have a couple of questions, I think, which Seb is taking care of. Let's move on to the most exciting session that most of you guys have been waiting for. So the dessert always comes, in the last, right? Anyway, so very pleased to invite on the screen Yoram. Just a little bit of background about Yoram. He's joining us from Geneva today. He has been in the in the technology space. He has led like multiple C-level roles in multiple companies there, and Yoram is very much focused on the Cardano Catalyst Fund, at this point of time. And one of the key initiatives that I really like on a personal note is, he's very much involved in the Cardano for Climate. I would love to learn more about those initiatives as well, on how, because climate change is a very big topic of late, across the globe, and how Cardano for Climate is addressing some of the issues, to bring and adopt blockchain technologies to those solutions is something that would be we'll be hearing from Yoram. And more than that, above all, how you as a developer could get grants. So over to you, Yoram, about the Catalyst Fund and all the other aspects. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Kiran. Thank you everyone for being here. And for me, Lucas and Sebastian were both very exciting presentations. So I hope I will be as exciting as them. So let me share also my screen. I need the authorization, please. Let me know when you see it, please. You see my screen?
Got it.
Yep.
Perfect. So I will take you through the Catalyst, Project Catalyst Fund. Yeah, I mean, we call it as a fund, but for me, it's much more exciting. It's really where I spend a lot of my time, and it's not only for the funding. I'll explain why. So the reason we are here, first of all, the reason that attracted me to Cardano is what you see in Cardano Foundation website. So making work for all. For many years, I was looking into transparency and traceability solution to scale impact in combination with business. And I just found a home in Cardano over 2 years ago. So my background in that sense, for many years, I was involved with technology companies also in India, managed a big company in Calcutta, eastern part of India. But in the last years, I'm focusing through my company Connectality on working with people and companies for impact and profit. And blockchain technology just blow my mind around that. How can we combine this technology for social and environmental impact? And part of that, we basically created co-host something called Cardano for Climate. There's about 400 community members today working on tens of projects. How blockchain, the Cardano blockchain, can support climate-related use cases. And basically, it's a community. We work together, we share, we try to support each other. We help to onboard people and companies, collaborate, and help them get funded. A lot of it also on Project Catalyst. Okay, and what we want, our goal is to make climate change something inherent to the Cardano ecosystem as an opportunity for Cardano. Through that we onboard impact-driven companies and people and leaders, and we try to build solutions that makes more value, and we believe it's a huge opportunity for the ecosystem. And I'm happy to then go into details of different projects we are working on. Project Catalyst, and that's kind of what united us also to start working on Cardano. So it's basically the biggest that I know, a decentralized innovation ecosystem. So when we speak about the decentralized ecosystem, so you can imagine a treasury that is kind of owned by the community, and the community is deciding which challenges they want to approach. The community is then there is a process. Community present projects to these challenges. Community can then there is a evaluation process by community members of the different proposals presented, and then there is voting again by the community. So let me give you some numbers. Before the numbers, actually, so every week on Wednesday, 5 p.m. UTC, we have a global town hall, and this is what we read every week. So it's an experiment. It's an experiment also in governance, if you want, because we iterate and improve the processes every time with the community support. But we say that things may break. There might be lack of documentation. There could be different iteration that we improve. It can be really overwhelming, but it's very, very, very inspiring. The people we meet and the connection is extremely inspiring. And our goal is to provide a safe place for people to come together and explore the highest potential of human collaboration. And it's very important to have the spirit of collaboration and helping each other, at least for me. So the Catalyst Fund, so far, around $40 million were paid already over 9 iterations of funds. So we see here money that was already distributed and other funds that will be distributed based on milestones. About 100 challenges. So as I mentioned before, the challenges is key. Each fund is really defined by, there are several challenges that are being elected by the community, and a challenge can be, we used to have actually a challenge even for Cardano for India, for example. So how can we onboard people in India, or it can be Cardano for decentralized finance, or for Africa, or different topics, or digital identities, and so on. Up to now, in less than 2 years, over 6,000 ideas and proposals were presented, and 1,100 were funded. I mean, this is huge. Imagine all of that is happening in a decentralized way. So there's no kind of a VC that decide everything and scan the project. It's all being done by community, and it's really massive. And 400 projects were completed, and the rest is being on the process of being completed. Yeah, we can see the budget of the fund. I mean, we started really as an experiment in the beginning, and it started with small fund, and we got to a situation where the funding is getting around $14 million per fund. The next fund is going to be in ADA, so it's going to be 16 million ADA. It's going to be Fund 10. It's going to be around April, sometime in April. And one thing that is important there is that, I mean, on top of this amount, there is amount that is being used to manage the process by the community, right? I mentioned for you, for example, evaluation process by the community. So there are more funds to basically manage this process, and people involved getting basically remuneration based on their contribution. So it's very, very interesting. And here is the challenges again. You can see the different challenges per fund, how many challenges per fund, which is interesting. Here again, another indication of, per fund, how many projects were presented and how many votes, again, people voting for that, and how many votes were casted and ideas that got funded. So we can see the growth. In Fund 9, actually, you see a little bit less project that got funded, but the amount of funding were much bigger because we had something unique there. We had one challenge was very, very big challenge. And it's normally it was the development on Cardano challenge, and the average funding per proposal was higher there. So coming into Fund 10, as I mentioned before, looking in the challenges is very, very important, because based on the challenges, this is how you make your proposal. The good news for this audience that most of the challenges for Fund 10 are developer-related proposals. right? So we have product and integration, development infrastructure, and so on. And you can see the challenge for each the amount of ADA for each challenge available. You can see it here. And the normal ideas or mindset around that is, that at least for my vision on that is, trying to make a good amount of proposal to get funded per challenge. Not that one proposal get the budget, but I, personally, and I think it's in the community that would like to see many great projects get funded, and it's kind of a funding to build use cases and to build great things, and then develop it further, get to know by the community. It's a good way to get intro to the community, actually, with smaller amounts of funding, and then get to know by the community, get connected to the community, then present more projects, get collaboration, get other funding sources as well. But that's at least part of the strategy that at Cardano for Climate, we help a lot of people on board in this way to the ecosystem. Okay, so that's quite good news for you guys. As Lucas mentioned, around basically all the ecosystem, it's a very, very active ecosystem of communities, and one of the leading, let's say, leading community or community management there is a swarm called Swarm, and they are basically supporting the town hall that is happening every Wednesday, and also many, many regional town halls. There is a town hall also in Asia, but I think, if anyone wants to pick it up and create a town hall related to India, probably Swarm is the right place to come and get support for that and see how to do it. But I highly recommend to join these town halls, start to meet people, start to get in. It's very welcoming way to meet people and get in and discuss with people. So I highly recommend to jump in, including the main one that is happening every Wednesday at 5 p.m. UTC. So in addition to that, there are many other communities. Here are some communities. We mentioned Gimbal Labs communities. Again, all of these communities have regular meetings. Cardano for Climate community, so we meet every Wednesday at 3 p.m. UTC. And so regular meeting, and then each community have many meetings around that. But it's a very good way to anything that you are passionate about in any of these communities. You come in, you introduce yourself, you meet people, you ask questions. It's very, very welcoming and collaborative approach to come on board. Yeah, if you have any more question or more information, feel free to reach out, and happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Thanks, Yoram. That was really great presentation. So someone was asking, about the community presence here in India.
Yeah. So there is a great, I know of different great initiatives within India. One of them, I know a community of developers in the eastern part of India, but there is also an amazing community in India. I just slipped my mind now, but yeah, I will come back to you it will come back to me in it. But there's a great active community in India. And which one? Sorry.
Konma? Yeah, someone
Konma.
Konma. Yeah.
Konma. Yeah, sorry for that. They're Konma, great. I mean, they are incredible people doing incredible work. Also with students, and a lot on working on metaverse, and very welcoming, excellent people. Definitely worthwhile to approach them and reach out to them. Yeah, but I think India, I mean, there's so much to do. I mean, if any of you is interested and will start coming in and we start being active, I think each one can take it to so many directions, right? And get support from the community.
Cool. Guys, we still have some more time left. Keep your questions coming. And I think before someone was asking about so Solidity has something like a remix ID environment. Like, does Cardano have anything on the similar lines?
I'm not sure. I would need to bridge you with the actual mesh community, but I'm not sure. Do we have anyone else on the call? No. Sebastian, do you have an opinion?
So there's one thing that makes it pretty easy to spin up Cardano infrastructure. That's a project called Demeter Run from a community group called TX Pipe. And this makes it, they have a Visual Studio integration, and it makes it super easy to come up with a whole Cardano development environment, including the smart contract part. I posted the, exactly, Lucas.
Yeah, cheers.
Cool, awesome. I think Gautam asks how ADA solves the blockchain trilemma. So Gautam, Seb has given a very interesting presentation. You can go back and check the recording, but like might be, Seb, would you like to touch might be 30 seconds, 1 minute on the blockchain trilemma? Sebastian, to you.
Or really didn't understand the question. Can you please repeat it?
No,
Just...
how ADA solves the blockchain trilemma. Basically, the scalability, the security, and the primarily the three trifectas of the blockchain trilemma there. Decentralization, security, and scalability.
Right, and you want to know where Cardano is positioned in that triangle?
Yeah. I mean, how is Cardano solving that?
Yeah, so I mean, security, the layer 1 protocol is of course super secure. There was also a comment about why we are sometimes moving so slow. I mean, that's probably one of the reasons for it, because we are trying to do a lot of due diligence research before we actually start with the implementation of certain features. That was one of the reasons why we came up so late with our smart contract platform compared to other blockchains. So that's how we take care of the security part. When it comes to scalability, especially in the last year and in this year to come, there are a couple of scalability solutions. So there we took care of mostly with the latest hard fork update to improve the scalability of the smart contract platform. But also now we are looking heavily into layer 2 solutions. So there's a thing called the Hydra Heads protocol, which gives you a possibility to put on-chain load off-chain in a so-called state channel. And also most recently, IOG released a sidechain toolkit, as well as a sidechain, that EVM sidechain that is built on top of Cardano, on off that toolkit. So yeah, that's how we take care of it.
Yeah, and I will add also that now Cardano is a big area, which is the governance area of their importance on the governance of the blockchain in a decentralized way. So that's a big area now for Cardano in that sense.
Completely agree.
So I'm just dropping something in the chat because people were asking about remix and environments. And if you do want that in simple environment, just one click type of thing, you can use Demeter.run. If you want to develop locally but leverage on environments a bit lower level than Mesh, you have these that I dropped on the chat. So Blockfrost, Koios, Maestro, and Tango Crypto are platforms where you don't, it's not necessarily, again, we need to distinguish the development of pure core smart contracts from the development of blockchain application. So for everything that bridges and communicates with the blockchain, you don't need smart contracts. You just need these types of platforms. And like I'm saying there in the last line, Mesh.js is actually abstracting you from communicating. So instead of coding specifically for Koios or for Blockfrost or something, you just code in Mesh.js, and you can even switch off and toggle it if your environment, if your server, if you need to communicate with a different one, you can use your same code from Mesh that abstracts you from either of them.
Cool, awesome, thanks. We have 1 more minute left, but I would love to bring Pratik on the screen. So this event would not have been made possible without the support of Pratik. And Pratik, might be a brief intro about you and the project that you're building. No, you're not audible, so. Okay, I think Pratik is rejoining, and let's give a minute, 30 seconds to him. So guys, any further questions about the Cardano ecosystem, how to get started, and especially the Cardano Catalyst Fund? Maybe I'll work with you guys, team, to get the slides. There has been a couple of questions about the slides and the presentation. So I'll work with Sub, Lucas, and Yoram, to get some of the information, and we'll share it along with the recording to the audience who are attending today, and also who have registered. Pratik?
Am I audible now?
Oh yeah, perfect. Go ahead.
Oh, super. Thank you, Kiran. So what we are doing is for Indian smallholder farmers, they have issues with uh, having more output for their producers and market access. So what we have built is a protocol that we would be launching on Cardano ecosystem primarily, and making sure that this is available for our community. And the main goal here is that this functions more like a DAO. Anybody could be a founder. Just become a member of the community and serve your local community in terms of solving their problems, because we have a huge population and not one person is enough to do it. So let's do this. As we keep building teams and communities, we have experts here that we could reach out to, raise funds from different communities as well, because Kiran is well connected in different spaces, and build the Indian community on Cardano. That's the whole goal.
Perfect. Awesome. So we'll take one last question. I know we are running out of time, but Hansi is asking exclusively about they're building a decentralized health project. It's a health DAO that they're building. So they're trying to understand the choice between Ethereum and Cardano for the decentralized health. And especially the question is around, do you think Cardano's verification and consensus mechanism, primarily trying to weigh the advantages between Ethereum and Cardano, especially in the consensus mechanism? That'd be Sebastian.
Yeah, that's simple to answer. Simple, yes. Also, our Ouroboros consensus mechanism is further developed. So it's not that Cardano still has the same consensus implementation that it had 2017. We already evolved that system and improved it. And the next big thing to come, which will bring a lot of transaction throughput improvement, is a thing that's called Ouroboros layers. I will post the link to it in the chat, and that's what IOG is currently working on. And this is really one thing that will significantly improve the performance of our current consensus protocol. Yeah. So basically, a yes, we are competitive to them.
Lovely, lovely. So cool, awesome.
So
yeah,
just to say,
yeah, sure, Lucas, go ahead.
Obviously, Sebastian has a very, he's representing the foundation. Maybe I can be a bit more free and speaking for myself. I usually tell people informally that the same way you have other blockchains that are trying to be good at just speed or just smart contracts or just side chains or something, Cardano has been building with solid technological foundations, and I, speaking just for myself, believe that eventually it's going to overthrow a lot of the selling points for other blockchains. For example, Hydra is going to allow us to compete with the likes of Solana, or in terms of speed and cost and everything. We now have side chains that are going to probably make something like Polkadot or Cosmos less relevant, or we can just bridge with them. For example, the World Mobile project that I presented is building a sidechain in Cosmos SDK that is going to communicate with Cardano. So I think this proves a lot that when we get to the massive interoperability that we're going to need, so blockchain is going to become the next layer over IP. So internet was established, and now we're going to have blockchains communicating over the internet. But Cardano is very well positioned to bridge with and communicate with a number of other blockchains, like the World Mobile token, World Mobile sidechain example. So yeah, I could go on, but for example, in terms of the smart contracts, we started with Haskell and Plutus, which is very hard, but now you're starting to see abstractions above, but the core is very solid. And I think so that's how I usually present it.
Yeah, and I will add a couple of things also on that. First of all, I mean, we are looking for collaborations cross chains as well. I mean, we are not afraid of that, and we are working on that. And even in Cardano Summit, we had Algorand come in and Celo come in. So there's really collaboration, and definitely in terms of Cardano for Climate, we are collaborating. I mean, the impact is a key, and how we get there. And more we collaborate, there's so much for this technology to evolve. So that's really, yeah, on this collaboration part. To add that.
Now that community collaboration there. Okay, cool. On that note, Just to conclude, guys, we'll be sharing this recording in the next 48 to 72 hours on YouTube. Feel free to go through the same again if you have any questions. Also, we'll work with the team and get you the material as well. On the other note, we'll closely work with the Cardano team to roll out more of technical sessions in the coming days, and would love to have Yoram, Sebastian, and Lucas on the ground in India. Might be doing Cardano hackathon sometime very soon. So we'll closely work with the team. We'll keep you posted, and stay tuned for more updates on especially the developer education. Check out Catalyst Fund. I think they have some interesting, cool projects. If you're building a very cool project, go and apply there. If you fit into that particular criteria there. So yeah, on that note, thank you so much, Sebastian, Lucas, and Yoram. The feedback in the backend has been incredible. So you guys nailed it, killed it. And this was a very great presentation, to be frank, to get introduced Cardano to the Indian developer ecosystem. And then also the amazing things that you guys have been doing and the amazing things that the developers could build on top of the Cardano ecosystem. So on that note, thank you so much. Have a great day, evening, and look forward to hosting you guys again. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Kiran, and thank you, Pratik, for organizing that. Thank you very much.
Thanks
Thanks a
guys.
lot.
Yes, bye.